everybody. My name's Max with Hutchinson Construction. I'm the logistics and supply manager here. So right here, this is one of our workhorses when we come to doing our lime mixture. This is the Cat SS 250 RM soil reclaimer. So this machine has 335 horsepower, a length of 28 foot, 10 inches. It's a mid-machine rotor. It has an 8-foot wide drum on it. It can come in 3 different variable ways. It comes with a drum that can mix soil, comes with a drum that can break concrete and rock and asphalt, and then it comes with a combination of both. On this one, we have our soil one, so it's 58 spade type tools, carbon face bits. It's the same type of rock bits that you'll see on the end of some of our buckets. It has 335 horsepower in it, has a 110-gallon tank on it, and this rotor spins 2,100 times a minute. It has an RPM of 2,100 per minute. The total gross weight of this thing is 42,035 pounds. Without the rotor, it's 36,235 pounds, and the rotor itself weighs 5,800 pounds alone. It has 53 gallons of hydraulic fluid. That's 10 buckets, 5-gallon buckets of hydraulic fluid running through it at all times. So what this machine ends up doing is this machine mixes up all of our soil that we've sprayed lime on and gets it mixed up real good, gets all the big rocks out of it, makes it real soft, and we let it bake. This go down to a depth of 12 inches and continue moving. The blades that we have on it right now are for soil. They're a paddle bit blade. You can also get a bullet blade, a bullet drum on it, and that's to reclaim asphalt, concrete, or hard stone. And when you do that, you want to get down deep enough to get to the base so that it can cool the blade while you're cutting. We use this on every job that we have lime, and it is another mainstay of our equipment. And you can find a lot of information online, but if you need any helpful tips or tricks, just please leave the comments down below.
So welcome everybody to the Civil Matters podcast. Today we have Herb Sargent of Sargent with us. Welcome, Herb.
Hey, welcome to you.
Could you just introduce yourself to our audience a little bit? Tell us about your history and the history of Sargent.
Yeah, I mean, I was almost literally born in the business. My dad was a superintendent on a piece of I-95 about the time this picture of my background was taken. And you lived about a mile away to rent a trailer. And I just was around the business my whole life. Made a short stint at college and got the hell out of there and went to work back on the road again. And so that was 1983. So I've been at it for about 46 years, summers included. Just retired from Sargent last July. Sargent's based in Maine. We have an office in New Hampshire, an office in Richmond, Virginia, and another office in Greensboro, North Carolina. So we have about 625 people right now, and working in those 4 states.
And Sargent is 100 years old, right?
Just turned 100 this year. Yeah, actually, just about 2.5 weeks ago, we had our 100th anniversary celebration.
Well, congratulations on that. It's a huge milestone. Yeah. And as I understand it, I may butcher a little bit, but as I understand it, there's been a few different transitions with Sargent. Like you started one and you bought the previous company. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'll try to walk you through and give you the Cliff Notes version. My dad and uncle took over the business. So we started in 1926 by my grandfather. My dad and my uncle took over the business in the mid-70s. And then they've again spread out into other businesses as well. And then in 1988, they sold H.E. Sargent, which is the family business, to a company from Paris, France. And that company had a lot of work in Africa. And like immediately all their work in Africa shut down. So they were in a crisis like within a month of when they signed the papers. And so that kind of led to a lot more changes in the business than we were ever expressed was going to happen. My dad ended up leaving about a year later. And then I stayed on. I had a project that I stayed on for a couple years. At the end of 1991, I left the business and started my own psych work development company with my brother Shane. And then about 13 years later, now former H.E. Sargent had been sold to a bigger company, which had been sold to another bigger company. And then that company had a subsidiary in St. Louis who became H.E. Sargent's parent company. And they did not want to be in the heavy civil business. So we heard they want to sell. So we bought the company back in 2005. So 21 years ago.
So I want to focus on that 91 time when you started your own company.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you could take us to maybe year 3-ish. And what is the day? What does the week look like? What's running through your head? What are some of the stressors? Just get a feel for kind of what you were dealing with.
Yeah. So year 3, none of it was real pretty. I'll be honest with you, Joe. It was year 3. I was in effect the superintendent. I had about 40-ish employees, and I was kind of the superintendent. I'd have 3 or 4 projects going on at a time. I was on every job every day. We were working about a 40-mile radius. I was logging about 70,000 miles a year in my truck. I did not have anybody back in the office on a consistent basis to put financials together for me. So I'm literally flying high in terms of what we had for profitability, of where we stood financially as the year went on. Really rudimentary financial statements and intermittent at that. So, I'd work with my CPA at the end of the year to get year-end statements, but it was not pretty in between.
When
We were doing about 4 to 5 million back then.
How long did it take you to get that? And like what revenue were you doing when you got to the point where you had that back office staff support?
Yeah, I got to about 6-7 million and got some better back office support. But it was really, until I had an opportunity to hire the former CFO of H.E. Sargent as my CFO, and we were at about 10 million at that time. We actually called him the controller at the time, and rather than the CFO, but he came in and he really was able to provide me with suddenly we were getting monthly financials, we were getting cash flow projections, we were doing gross profit margin projections out to the end of the year, and at the same time, within about 10 months of his name was George joining us, I hired there again H.E. Sargent as VP of operations. He was in Virginia and he wanted to come back to Maine, and so I hired him. Those 2 guys, it really changed my business dramatically. It took me up out of the weeds, and Tim was really in charge of the projects, and George was in charge of the back office. And it took me out of the weeds in a big way. And that was about 5 years before we bought the big company.
Were you still doing estimates then? Like at what point?
I had been up to that point. I was involved in all the estimates. And then when Tim came on, he probably took 70% of the estimating, and I took about 30. I'd take smaller jobs that I knew the owners to, that sort of thing. But still involved in reviewing the estimates with Tim. Always did that.
To what point? Like, how long did you stay involved in the estimating?
After we bought the bigger company in 2005, I would still, the larger jobs, I'd still get involved in figuring out how the jobs fit us from a strategic standpoint. Talking about chasing the right customers, the right type of work. So in markup, we talk about what's the business decision we want to make around gross profit markup, that sort of thing. So still involved in that level, but not so much reviewing the line item bids after 2005.
So we've talked before, and you have a interesting way of um, analogizing growing the business, and you talk about gaining altitude. Can you explain your analogy?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm a pilot too, so this kind of this kind of thinking kind of came naturally to me. But there's also a story my grandfather told me. He was a pilot, and in his early days as a pilot, they went to one of the lakes in Maine in the dead of winter to get a plane. And his instructor told him, "Listen, Herb, his name is Herb also. Uh, I want you to climb up to about 8,000 feet. So if you lose power, there will always be a lake you can glide to." And that was kind of an important story for me. And it made me think about business. Like if we can get altitude in business and an economic recession comes or something happens to us, and if we're flying higher, theoretically, we've got that glide ratio in the work with. So most planes, this example, have about a 17:1 glide ratio. If they're a mile in the sky, they'll glide 17 miles before they hit the ground. And so for me, it was like we need to think about our business in terms of gaining altitude and not giving up altitude unless it's in service of a higher altitude within a certain period of time. So, in other words, if it's strategic. And, three of the things that pilots hate to give up, three of the assets they hate to give up is altitude, runway, and fuel. The old saying is there's nothing more useless to a pilot than altitude above you. So that altitude becomes a great asset to you. And if you can build your business in a way that you have the relationships with your bank and bonding company that uh, that aren't strained, that are really strategically handled, you have a good morale in your crew, you have a good balance sheet strength, and you have a good relationship with your vendors, subcontractors, general contractors. All those things to me feed into like what a company's altitude is. And I started thinking about this a few years ago as we were coming out of the Great Recession, 2011, 12, 13. We lost a lot of altitude. Our company became, like many companies, became much weaker over that period between, say, 2009, 10 to 2013. And we just really needed to work to regain that altitude and get some financial margins of safety. And that's what really altitude buys you. If you're a plane flying at 32,000 feet, you've got about 25 minutes to make decisions and find a place to land. If you're flying at 1,000 feet, you got about 45 seconds. So it's really just kind of an analogy, as you said, to think about if we can be higher, way up here at 30,000 feet, the bag probably is not going to call you no. And if they do have some issues with you, you've got some time to make some decisions, to strategize around how to handle those pressures. But if you're at 1,000 feet and the van calls you down, you're just in the trees.
So what are some, key strategic decisions or efforts that you made to get that altitude back?
So one of the things we've done is we've created a workforce advancement. It was a one-man team for the first 5 years, and we started what we call a Sargent Construction Academy to bring young people into the business. We also, a big thing for us was we've always had to do every job just to get what we want for work for backlog. And all of a sudden the economy was better than it's ever been. And we just decided that we needed and for instance, in 2018, we bid $1.2 billion worth of work at a 10% hit ratio. But we got a lot of work that we didn't really like and we weren't really great at, and we got overextended. So the next year we decided to just scratch off the work that we didn't feel fit us well. And those particular customers that weren't great customers for us, we just said we're not going to do that work. So we literally, between those two things, between the workforce advancement and putting uh, more pressure on recruiting and training, and taking some pressure off the market and off our people. So we cut our number of bids in half in 2018 to 2019, and our hit ratio went up to about 30% in 2019. And in 2018, we did about $120 million profit, not very impressive. In 2019, we did about the same volume and our profit was triple.
Wow. How do you, for Sargent, what the projects that you decide to pursue, are they a mix of public and private?
We get a mix of public and private, yes. And uh, it can swing wildly one year after the next, but we prefer private work if we can get it, but it's not always there in the state we work in Maine, so it's not always there. So we have to rely a fair amount on the airport work, highway work. That's been a big component over the last several years for us.
And y'all are predominantly, I'm just assuming, union, being up north?
No, we're not union.
You're non-union.
No, union in the Boston area, unions are strong, but not much outside the Boston area. From Boston down to, Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, Rhode Island, that's all heavily union, but just north of Boston, very far, you're out of union influence.
And then when you're making a selection for projects to pursue, who do you empower to make those go no go decisions? And is it based on a formal filter that y'all have come together and developed?
So our people we've got a vice president. We have a COO in the North New England region and a COO that covers the Southeast region. And those guys really make the decisions on what to pursue or not. So I personally have not, as you know, I retired last July. I personally have not been involved in project go no go discussions for I'd say 3 or 4 years now. If there's a big project that we're bidding, I'll whiz my way in there just to understand the thinking around it and make sure that we're covering the risks the way we need to.
And would you say that's part of the altitude gaining is, giving that empowerment to the people and kind of letting go of those reins?
Gaining is to me part of the altitude gaining is understanding what things I knew to be involved in and what things that I knew to get the hell out of, and really develop that decision making in the process, the thought process around it, and does it fit our values? Does it fit what we have for capacity right now? So we're just starting to think a lot more about that, and frankly, I'd say thinking a lot less about ego. One thing I did not mention when I'm talking about altitude and the various what I consider the components of altitude is management alignment. If you don't have alignment at the management level, at the senior management level, I think it's really difficult to get altitude. I think you'd have to make sure that you have everybody throwing in the same direction, and the ego does not make its way into the bid room.
Yes, sir. Well, you guys have certainly been successful and continue to grow. And I know you've got to run here soon, so we'll let you go. Any final parting wisdom for folks like myself that are kind of still in that early stage, getting started and trying to get the altitude?
Yeah, I think, the more that you can, this is what I wish I'd done more. You mentioned 3 years in. I wish I had done more backing away and disappearing for half a day and being very clear about what the expectations were with my team and let them do the thing. I mean, I was just a micromanager just to no end. And I would go back to that day and I would say, I'm going to hand off the expectations cleanly to my team, and I'm going to disappear and tell them This is yours to fight through and fight through. To me, that builds people a lot faster than me telling them what to do every day.
It's great advice. Thank you. And I appreciate your
Yeah.
time today. Appreciate you joining
Well,
us.
sorry I had to cut it short.
Oh, you're good. You're good. I appreciate you being on, and hopefully we'll get a chance to do it again sometime.
Well, I'm glad to get on again. If you want to just add it on to the back half of this one, however you want to do it, but
Yes, sir.
let's get on again.
Okay. Well, thanks, Herb.
Thank you, Joe.
Appreciate it.